Kitco News, special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse, is brought to you by O3 Mining.
A common refrain in mining is you can't choose where the resources are located. I'm with the CEO of Royal Road, Tim Coughlin. Tim, thank you very much for joining Kitco.
Thanks, Michael. Much appreciated.
Tim, you have projects that are located in Colombia and Nicaragua. They can be challenging jurisdictions. When you're communicating with a potential investor, what is the model that you take them through?
Well, we start by being pretty transparent about what the challenges are. And both countries are quite different. So it's not so much a model, it's more adapting your operations to ensure that you're minimizing your operating risk. Oddly enough, Nicaragua is quite straightforward. And I know that probably sounds a little bit disingenuous, but it's true. I mean, there's a strange dichotomy in Nicaragua because of the international view of its governance, and rightly so. And then actually the reality of working on the ground there. And in fact, the government's very supportive, and it's quite a pleasant place to get on with. Colombia is very challenging. But it's very regional. And so, it's a country that's sort of separated by three very distinct mountain ranges. So it has a sort of east-west variation in sort of social challenges, if you like, and a very well-defined north-south challenge. Mm-hmm. And so we have two blocks. We have what we call the northern block, which is in Antioquia, and then what we call the southern block, which covers Cauca and Nariño province in the south. The southern block is way more challenging than the northern block. Northern block's a fairly straightforward operating environment. In the south, we're dealing with issues that are mostly related to the drug trade and the violence and malcontent and disenfranchisement of those communities that unfortunately have to live with that. And so. The way we sort of try to get around that as best we can, and in some places it's almost impossible, and that's that has to be said. In other areas, we obviously start with the community, and generally communities are quite supportive and quite interested in any sort of investment other than what they've been used to, and then we sort of see how we go, because generally what happens is you will work with the community and you'll be fine, and then somebody will appear on the scene and make life difficult for them, and for you. And at that point, we have to decide whether to retreat or to stay. In 2017, we signed an agreement with a cooperative called ECOMUN, which is comprised of ex-FARC guerrillas. And after the peace process was November 2016. And then at the following year, we signed this agreement. And the idea of that is to sort of reintegrate those ex-combatants, get them back into proper jobs. And that's been quite successful. It's been slow, but it's been quite successful. And it's very interesting having, and it doesn't work everywhere, I should say, but it's very interesting having their perspective on the environments in which they believe we would be able to advance exploration and bring on sort of community agreements, and the ones that we should just forget about. And so there are some that we should just forget about. But I mean, we've always done this. I don't know why. We've always done this, and well, I do know why. When we started life as a team, the idea, we were working with the IFC and the EBRD in Eastern Europe, and in Bosnia, in the Balkans, so in Bosnia, but in Bosnia, Kosovo, and other environments. And the idea really behind the model is that if you go and discover a resource out in these sort of post-conflict environments, it helps to decentralize the economy and the power base, and you're putting wealth and resources into the hands of these often very sensitive and sensitized rural communities, and rebuilding that economy, as it were, because often the discontent, especially if it's an internal conflict like Colombia, is between those rural communities and sort of the established elite in in that case in Bogota.
I often think it's unusual in your case because I often think, you see the large miners, especially large ones, and they just have these huge campaigns around environmental social governance in terms of community relations, in terms of what they've been able to build. It would seem somebody that's like a junior like yourself, that would be, you just don't have the resources that you can do in that way. So you're going to have to be thinking, I guess, more flexibly about what you can manage.
Yeah, I mean, the social side. So we have a fairly extensive social team, and they're a big part of the budget. I have to say, and I need to point out that life's fairly normal for us in Nicaragua when it comes to exploration, and also in the northern bloc in Colombia. The southern bloc is where they are sort of entirely deployed, and there's not much exploration going on, but we don't need to because we sort of know where the targets are, and it's a case of gaining access more than getting a resource. One of the things we've done in terms of social and environment to an extent is established an accelerator, which is like a community venture capital fund, if you like. And so the idea is for us to not spend too much of our sort of exploration resources, which are finite, on social projects, but to try and have some sort of self-standing process that will allow us to develop sustainable projects, so things that are unrelated to mining. So the accelerator has been quite useful. The most advanced project is actually a CBD hemp project in Nariño, where we're employing ex-combatants and displaced, so conflict displaced people. 7 million internally displaced people in Colombia. And it's got 14,000 plants now. There's an Israeli investor who's getting involved. And so the idea is that we'll get out of that. Those funds will get reinvested in our other accelerator projects. We've got a pretty cool one in Nicaragua, which is a native plant that produces its own bioinsecticide, which is effective in killing ticks, and also a thing called a varroa mite, which kills honeybees. So those projects will be entirely standalone, and at some point we'll exit and that money gets reinvested in the next project. So it's not quite there yet, but hopefully in the next few years, the accelerator will just be self-sustaining. And
then also it's just goodwill that you're building, and then also a flexible way to, I assume, to kind of provide options for communities that you want to work with.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting as well. So we had like a Shark Tank contest just recently. We had 85 applicants between Colombia and Nicaragua. We're down to 3 or 4 finalists with all sorts of great things. Like there's one where they're using a fly that you actually mash the poor thing up at the end of the day. But it's a protein. It's a very what would you say? A powerful protein. So more so than soya, that you can put in animal feed or even a human feed at some particular point in time. So that's a pretty funky one. And then we're also looking at some reforestation, not quite carbon credits, but reforestation type exercises as well that's part of the accelerator.
You had a funding, I think it was a year ago in August, and then you also had a hit recently as well with sale.
Yeah, so we raised some money in August last year, and then we sold. Like I said, well, I should say that we're focused on sort of tier 1 ore deposits. So we sold a smaller one and banked $22.5 million US off that, just recently.
Mm-hmm. The model going forward, what's the business going to be going forward for Railroad?
We've got it's same old. We've got a couple of projects that we're drilling right now, one in Nicaragua and one in Colombia, that we think have got that sort of tier 1 potential, so tier plus 5 million ounces type of stuff. We're pretty pleased about the one in Colombia because it's got copper with it. I think we need to build our copper portfolio a bit more, given for obvious reasons. We've got a lot of copper projects, some in Colombia that are quite spectacular, but they're in the south, and we need to gain sort of secure access to them. So a bit more copper, but the land package is extensive. I don't feel the need to go claiming any more ground or to go anywhere else. We've got plenty to do.
Tim, thanks for your discussion with Kitco.
Thanks, Michael.
My name is Michael McRae. Look for more video from Deutsche Goldmesse.
Kitco News, special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by O3 Mining.